have this YouTube channel all about obscure video game consoles. Basically, I find any weirdo, second-rate consoles I can get my hands on. Consoles that have been totally forgotten by the gaming community. I drop a few bucks to buy them on eBay, and then I make videos about them. I've done videos on the Coleco Telstar Arcade, the Apple Bandai Pippin. Hell, I've even done the Super Lady Cassette Vision. Your average gamer's never heard of these janky old relics. But I do my research, so I know about every single console out there. At least, I thought I did. Until I came across an eBay listing for a device called the Puppet Master. The image on the listing just showed this simple gold box with a controller. Nothing flash, no gimmicks. The description simply said, "The last console you'll ever buy." Doubtful, I thought. I had to cough up $1,000 to buy this thing, which is crazy money for a failed console. But I knew this would be great for my channel. If I hadn't heard of it, then nobody had. I'd be showing my viewers something truly unknown. It came the next day, and looked just as simple as it had in the picture. One controller, no slot for a second, a plug for the power and for the TV, and that was everything. It didn't even have a disk drive or a slot for cartridges. I guess it was one of those consoles with a limited selection of games already loaded onto it. A classic hallmark of rubbish consoles. I set up my equipment to make the video, but the moment I powered the console up, every other device in my house went on the fritz. My video feed was just a sheet of white static. My audio recording deteriorated into a crackly mess. Weird. Just as I tried to fix everything up, glowing words appeared on the TV screen. No filming. The Puppet Master is for your eyes only. Suddenly, click, everything turned off except the TV and the console. My room was pitch black. Just me and the screen. How could some second-rate console with a second-rate name, the so-called Puppet Master, tell that I was recording, let alone shut down my equipment? I thought I'd figure out a workaround to make my video later. For now, this console had sparked my curiosity, and I wanted to dig into its secret. It never gave me a menu. It just asked a simple question. Do you want to win the crown? Yes or no? Yes, of course! Games are all about winning! The glowing words quivered in new shapes. You have one life to win the crown. One single life? Intriguing. A proper challenge. No second chances. The scratch text melted away, and the screen bloomed into life, fading in on a figure curled up on the ground in a filthy room. I guess this was my player character, but before I pressed a single button, I just had to take a moment to admire their graphics. They were picture-perfect realistic. I didn't think computers would be capable of this for decades, if ever. How had I never heard of this console? I pushed on the thumbstick, and my character jerked into life. He had some kind of contraption stuck onto his head, covered in wires and pieces of metal. As I pushed forward, he jolted awake like he'd been given an electric shock and dragged himself onto his feet. The poor guy looked absolutely terrified. His eyes were wide and desperate, completely hollowed of hope. The perfect graphics brought it all to life so realistically that I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. I felt I had to win this game. I had to save this pitiful guy from whatever hellish circumstances he was in, and I only had one life to do it. As I moved him around, exploring this huge crumbling warehouse, his movements were so realistic, but so strange as well. Jerky, like a puppet being pulled by strings, or Frankenstein's monster, powered into motion by sparks of electricity. Every command I put in with my controller seemed to twist his body against his will. As I explored, began to come across fresh corpses strewn around the filthy warehouse. Each one had their own contraption, wired into their head, much like my character's own. Their fatal injuries were so realistic that I nearly threw up. A guy with a piece of rebar shoved into his eye socket looked like a real body in a morgue that had been in some terrible accident. I'd never seen anything like it in a video game. What's more, my character responded to each body he came across with the most realistic terror and despair. Usually, game characters have a limited range animations, and you'll notice them repeating again and again as the character goes about the world. The same motions in the same way. But my character responded differently to the horrors he came across every single time. The coding behind this game must have been unbelievable, I thought. Finally, I creeped open a rusty iron door to find a living person on the other side. A man with a bloody metal pipe in his hand. He had his own contraption in his head too. And as he approached me, raising his pipe to swing, I noticed fear, not anger, in his eyes. Like he didn't want to be doing this. I backed away just in time and ran to find a weapon of my own. I could hear his footsteps following me, and I passed from room to room, searching for anything to fight back with. It also seemed so real. I was genuinely terrified. Eventually, as I ran away, I came across another man, nearly dead. He had a large shard of glass sticking out of his chest and the same strange headgear as everyone else. At least I found a weapon, I thought, as I pulled the glass out of his chest. As it slid out of his, he moaned some desperate and weak words. "Kill me. Please. End this. I should have never played. Just kill me." I knew how games worked. Perhaps I'd get some reward for doing as he'd asked and finishing him off, like a little side quest. I had to look away as I had my character slit his throat with the sharp edge of the glass. But I received no reward in return, only a quiet "thank you" burbled through the blood pouring from his throat, and then the sound of my character weeping. It was so real that I couldn't bear it any longer, and apparently neither could my character. He turned to the camera and said, "Me too. Please put me out of my misery. I can't do it anymore." No, I thought. This may have been the most disturbing game I'd ever played, but I wanted to win for this guy, whatever winning meant. I wanted to save him. I would have to fight. I would have to find a way out. Bang, bang, bang. The man with the pipe kicked his way into the room, eyes mad and wild with despair. I prepared to make a stand. Clearly only one of us was going to survive. I slashed with my measly piece of glass, but the man just kept swinging through the pain of his wounds. Kept alive like a puppet on strings. With one huge swipe, he knocked my character to the ground. Crunch! He shattered my poor guy's skull under the end of his metal pipe. Brains splattered onto the walls. I have failed, but I was glad to be done. It was so horrible. I never wanted to play this game again, let alone make a video on it. As the screen faded to black, I expected a game over message, but received something quite different. "Congratulations," said the text. "You have won the crown." Suddenly, a high-pitched tone squealed out of the little gold console. It felt like it was messing with my brain, making all my neurons explode like fireworks. I desperately hit the off button again and again, but it did nothing, and the noise kept winning on, burying itself into my brain until I passed out and fell to the ground. What happened next? I don't quite know. I remember being carried out of my apartment and thrown into a big black truck. Next thing, I'm waking up into a dirty surgery room. Some evil-eyed doctor is drilling into my head. I could smell the drill bit wearing into my skull. I came in and out of my consciousness, so I don't remember everything. But I remember the evil doctor pressing buttons in a remote, causing my limbs to stick themselves out and move around all on their own. I had lost control of my own body. Then an injection was jabbed into a vein in my neck, and blackness came over me once again. I don't know how much time passed. When I woke, it felt like I'd been sleeping for decades. My body felt so tense I couldn't move it. I could move my eyes though, and I recognized my surroundings immediately. The warehouse. I was in the warehouse of that horrible game. A camera and a drone was floating behind me. It had all looked so real because it was real. It must have been coming from a live feed. I rolled my eyes upwards and noticed was on my head, where the doctor had drilled into me. Wires, metals. It was one of those contraptions I had seen on all of the characters, all of the corpses. My own crown, which I'd won by playing a part in that evil game. Player connected, said a voice in my head. My drilled-on crown shot a pulse of electricity through the circuits of my brain, and my body forced itself onto its feet. Someone was controlling me. Some poor fool who'd brought the puppet master like I did. But this time, it was my turn to be the puppet.
If you like these scary stories, remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Anyway, you won't be escaping from the fear zone.